Good morning, everyone. Not done one of these for a while, so it's really good to see you all in the chat already. Absolutely loads to talk about today regarding Newcastle and the new season and the current season ending and all that sort of stuff. Loads of stuff. We've got news about the Premier League restarting on the 12th of September, which we'll talk about. We've got stuff about the training ground. Going to talk about the Newcastle squad a bit. The game against Liverpool this weekend and the other final games of the season. Maybe talk a little bit about relegation and European places and who's going to grab them. And also stuff about the news that that there could be fans back in the stadiums next season too. And of course, during my live stream, I like to have a bit of a quiz. So I've got a couple of guess the player questions this morning. So. Good morning to all of you in the chat already. I can see quite a few of you there already. So we've got... Sorry, I'm all over the place today. We've got Paul Jackson, morning to you. Kieran, morning to you. Gordon, morning to you. B. Taylor, J. Mac and Paul, welcome along. Obviously, any questions you want to ask or anything you want to say, just shout it out. And I'm hoping... I keep trying new things when I do live streams, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some of your messages on screen this morning. So I'm going to try that. Hopefully that'll work. Let's start with kind of the sort of. There's been quite a busy week at Newcastle in a sense, I guess. In terms of sponsorship deals and new kits and all that sort of stuff. So obviously there was the news earlier in the week that Fun88 had extended their sponsorship of Newcastle United, and it was a bit of a vague and kind of woolly statement in my mind. It said in a multi-year deal, basically, a long-term deal, but they never specified how much, and they didn't really specify the terms of that deal either, which I thought was really interesting. And so it looks like, for me, it looks like Fun88 are going to be the shirt sponsor for probably one more season. There's still obviously the takeover stuff going on, so we'll see what happens with that. But Fun88 will be a partner of the club for many years, but I don't think they'll be the shirt sponsor necessarily for many years. I'd like to know what you think about that. Do you think that the Fun88 extension is just what it is? For me, it feels like they waited until the very last moment, until they had to announce it, because obviously they had to release the new kit as well. It must be like a contractual thing with the new kits and stuff. But for me, it feels like they were holding off as long as possible. Which, I mean, how do you want to take that? I want to take that as a positive, that it means that the takeover might be happening still, and I think the signs are still pointing towards that in my view. Let's have a look at the new kit. What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you like the new kit? My first impressions of it were that, first of all, it looks very similar to a kit we had a couple of seasons ago, albeit with black arms rather than kind of black and white stripes on the sleeves. Obviously, I really love the fact it's thin stripes. I hate the fat stripes. I hate this season's kit. I think it's one of the worst kits we've ever had, to be perfectly honest with you. But I quite like the thin stripes, and actually, the more I see it, and I did see some pictures of it kind of up close and in real life, and it actually doesn't look too bad. I like the fact that it's solid stripes on the back and there's not like a gap for the numbers. I'm guessing the numbers are going to be red, but I don't know for sure. I hope they are, because I think that always looks better. And then the shorts are fine, and obviously the socks. I quite like the socks as well with the stripes along. Obviously, we all know it's been linked to like the West Brom kit. It kind of looks exactly the same. It's a template, isn't it? But that being said, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. It's not an amazing kit. It's okay, but it's better than the one we've got this season. So anyway, right. Let's see what we've got then. So there we go. So Paul Jackson, he says the shorts are boring. I mean, they're just black shorts, aren't they? How do you make them particularly exciting? Are any of our shorts ever exciting? I suppose you can have a bit of trim on them and stuff sometimes. They're just plain black shorts. Liam also saying the new kit is a lazy design. Yeah, like I say, it's a template, isn't it? It's from a template. It is what it is, and it's fine. It's okay. It's going to look fine on the pitch. It's going to look better than this season's kit. So that's what I think. I'm just going to see if I can get a message. I've just spotted a message. Let's talk a little bit about this then, about the takeover. Keep your comments coming about the kit. We'll put some of them up in a minute. Have you seen the latest in The Independent? Apparently the source close to the Premier League saying the deal won't be blocked. I haven't seen that, if I'm honest. And I've taken the viewpoint for several weeks now that any positive story and any negative story in the papers, I kind of just ignore at the moment. My gut instinct is that the takeover deal is still progressing. I think if it wasn't, we would know. That's what I think. I do think they're working things through. I do think it's complicated. I take comfort in the fact that Southampton's takeover deal took 8 or 9 months. So, it could be a while longer yet until we get new owners. Until we get new owners. So, but I've not seen that story. Hopefully that's true. There's all kinds of things, isn't there, pointing towards the fact that the takeover might still be happening. So let's see. Stephen March, he good to have you here, Stephen. He still believes in the takeover too. I'm very much in doubt with the takeover. Dale, interesting comment. He says, I'm very much in doubt with the takeover. Some people are, and that's fine. Everyone's allowed their opinion. Everyone's allowed to be skeptical about it. I mean, it's gone on for a long time, and it's not exactly what anyone wants. But we will see. I mean, there's no prizes for being right or wrong here. I know some people seem to think it's. I kind of get the impression over on Twitter in particular that there's people kind of who seem to want sort of a prize for saying, oh, it's not happening, or it's a fake over. Well, it's not a fake over, is it? It's definitely something going on. It's not fake. This is not a fake situation. Whether it happens or not is a different matter, but, don't come and say it's... Don't tell me it's like there's nothing happening, because clearly it is. There is something going on. But that's a different statement to saying whether it'll pass or not. Dylan says, I don't think Ashley will own Newcastle, but I don't think Amanda Staveley will own the club either. Again, another possibility. Ashley clearly, in my view, is a willing seller, and that's something we've not had from him truly in the past, I don't think. And I think that he does want to sell the club. I think he needs to sell the club, personally. I think he's in the position where he needs the money. He's got a lot of money going out, losing a lot of money on the high street. He had that big tax bill in Belgium, which was like 350 million euros or something. So we've got a willing seller. Who the buyer will be, who knows? Hopefully it will be the Saudi bid. I hope it is, because obviously that will be revolutionary for the club. But if it's not, and it is someone different, well, that's fine too, in my view, because I think as long as we change ownership and we get some owners who want to progress the club, want to move on, treat the club correctly, treat the fans correctly, I'll be happy. Even if we don't become a powerhouse of world football, obviously that's the tantalising thing at the moment, isn't it? That we're going to become this superpower, and that might not happen. And if it doesn't, so be it. But as long as we get sold to someone, I'll be happy. I'm just going to see if I can find a couple of questions. So, yeah, this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. So, Kirby, morning, Kirby. Kirby says, what's your opinion on the Sports Direct signs being taken down? So, if you haven't seen this, there was a thing went round yesterday. Let me just see if I can get this up. Where is it? Training ground stuff. A couple of things to talk about with the training ground, actually. So, there's this. I'll just get rid of that. So the tweet on the left there, it's at Newcastle training session pictures. Someone spotted that the Sports Direct signs aren't visible in any of the training ground pictures from yesterday. Now, I actually had a bit of a look last night. I can't show you any of the images because they're copyrighted images from Getty. But basically, I looked through Getty's images, And the training session that was held yesterday, there's Puma signs, there's Fun 88 signs, but there are no Sports Direct signs, which is interesting. Now, I looked further back because I thought, well, are they ever there? And people were saying that they are there. So I had a look back, and I had a look back at the Getty images from previous training sessions, and there are definitely Sports Direct signs in those other pictures. And in some of the places that the photographs were taken from yesterday. So that's really, really interesting. Potentially it could be interesting. I mean, it depends how you want to look at it. It could just be that. I mean, I remember them being taken out of St James's Park last summer, I think it was, but they were just kind of being replaced and renewed. So it might mean nothing, but it's an interesting kind of slant on it. It's an interesting story. What do you lot think? Do you think there's anything in it, or do you think it's nothing? Mark Parker, will this be uploaded when you've finished it? Yeah, it will go straight up as a repeat, so you can watch it in your own time. No problem with that. So anyway, what do you think about that? And then the other thing about the training ground is obviously Sheffield United announced yesterday they're going to build a brand new training facility, state-of-the-art thing, and clearly that kind of got some of our fans backs up. And I understand why, because obviously under Ashley, the training ground is awful, isn't it? And we know it needs the investment. But we'll see. Again, new owners will get one. I'm pretty sure of that. But obviously, if we're stuck with Ashley, it's another club who've come from behind us to overtake us in terms of progression. And it kind of puts to bed all the stupid arguments about how Newcastle are competing at their level. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you want to truly compete in the Premier League, if you want to better yourself, then you can do. And I mean, I'm preaching to the converted here because you're all Newcastle fans, but it's so frustrating to me that this narrative's been allowed to exist about Newcastle being living within their means and kind of, we are where we are and that's where we should be, because I just think it's rubbish. Look at the teams who've overtaken us: Wolves, Leicester, Sheffield United, even clubs like Burnley. They're like a step ahead of us, Southampton, and yet under Ashley we've completely stagnated. We've gone completely backwards, and it's just frustrating as anything. It's absolutely, it just does my head in. So anyway, how do you feel about that? Yeah, Peter. So let me see if I can just get that message up. This could be true. So Peter, nice to have you here, Peter. He's having them cleaned ready for next season. And again, like I said, that happened last season with the Sports Direct signs in St James's Park. They got removed and they got replaced because they were just being cleaned. There was nothing in it. And maybe that's the same at the training ground. But the other sponsorship signs haven't been taken down. So, there we go. We don't know. Liam says we're on a par now with teams like Brighton and West Ham. And that's the frustration, isn't it? We just know that we should be able to be above teams like Brighton. With our resources and proper investment, we shouldn't even have to worry about competing with Brighton, and yet we're in the same sort of position as them in the league, and since we got promoted, we've done no better than them, really. It's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. Apparently the Belgian tax bill was over 600 million euros. Wow, that's a lot of money. So there you go. That's what I'm saying. Ashley needs his cash, doesn't he? That's what he needs. He needs to sell the club. He needs that 300 million or however much he's going to get for it. And there we go. So, and like another thing this week was about this. I don't know what people make of this. Crowds returning in October. So Boris Johnson announced earlier in the week that Premier League football grounds and other stadiums could allow fans back in as soon as October, but maybe not to expect full capacity until next year. So they're talking of I've read, obviously this particular article here says 25%. I read yesterday that it was 30%. For Newcastle United, that would mean 17,000 fans. I think, if my maths is about right. What do you think of that? I mean, would you go? Would you, like, if you have a ticket, would you go to a game anyway with COVID still about? Would you go even if it was at 25 to 30% capacity? Or would you not go? Would you not want to risk going to a football match in a large crowd like that, even if it was at 30% capacity? I think I would probably go. I think as soon as I can go back, I probably will. It'll be very weird having such an empty stadium, 17,000. And of course, you've got to bear in mind, it wouldn't just be 17,000 in like the lower bowl, would it? It'd be 17,000 including fans spread out in the upper tier as well, level 7. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I obviously we all want to see crowds back, and we just want to get back to normal, don't we? Football is not the same without crowds. You know, Project Restart was fun when it first started, mainly because Newcastle got some good results. But you know, it's sort of, as it's gone on, it's become evident that actually football without fans is just not very fun at all. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. Even with the fake crowd noise on TV, it's just doesn't feel right, does it? I mean, like, every time a player scores a goal, there's not the celebrations. Have you noticed that? They're not inclined to celebrate because there's not the fans to celebrate with. I mean, they do celebrate, but it's not the same. There's not that kind of burst of pure emotion. It's just kind of, it's almost like they're on the training pitch and they've scored and that's it. They don't really celebrate it. Yeah, Peter makes a really good point here. Good luck deciding who actually gets to go. You wouldn't want to be the one picking who can or can't. Yeah, exactly. How would that work? If you bear in mind Newcastle, I mean, I don't know how many season ticket holders there are, but I'm guessing there's probably more than 17,000. So how do you choose where they go? And if, like, so for example, I sit with my dad and my auntie, and there's 3 of us in a row, do we all get to go to the same game? Or are we split over different games? Or if we do get to go to the same game, do we have to sit separately, or are we allowed to sit in a group? You know, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered there, I think. I'm not entirely sure how it will work. B. Taylor saying it'll be a nightmare to organise with the reduced number of staff at St James's Park. Not possible to please, but he would certainly go, or she would certainly go. I'm guessing a man. I don't know why. Apologies if you're not. Yeah, it will be hard to organise. This is what I'm saying. They've got to. How do you make it fair? Do you say, right, you take it in turns, so you split the season ticket holders into 3 groups, and then it's like 1 week, 1 game. You know, you can go every 3rd game, or what? How will it work? It just seems very, very. It seemed very, very strange indeed. I don't think there's as many as 40,000 season ticket holders though. I'm pretty sure there's not as many as that, because I mean the away fans sometimes get 4,000, 5,000 tickets. So I'd be surprised if there was as many as 40,000 season tickets, especially when they gave 10,000 away. Dylan says, the thing is, we don't necessarily want the richest owner, we just want an owner who cares and have some ambition for the club. And I totally agree with that. That's exactly what I'm saying. The problem we've got is we've all been kind of, not promised, but kind of believed that we're going to end up as possibly with the wealthiest owners in world football. And obviously that's exciting as a football fan, isn't it? That you want your team to be the biggest and the best and all that sort of stuff, and be able to buy the best players. And with sort of unlimited cash, you'll be able to do that. So the temptation, so if it doesn't go through with Saudi Arabia, it might feel a bit disappointing. Does that make sense? But I agree with you, Dylan. Absolutely. For me, as long as Ashley goes and we get an owner who cares for the club, runs it properly. You know, we don't obviously want we don't want to replace Mike Ashley with someone like Mike Ashley or worse, because those owners are out there. Just look at Hull, look at Wigan, look at who else? There's loads of examples of terrible owners. You know, Ashley is bad, but it could be worse. Don't ever forget that. As bad as it's been with Ashley, there are worse owners. You know, look at the Mackhams. you know. Terrible what's gone on there, really, if we're honest. So I do agree with that. It's a really good point, Dylan. God, a lot of text on that one. Let me see if I can just reduce that a little bit. Hang on a sec. There we go. Right. So Gordon says the narrative that this season has been a great success because we have 44 points and safe from relegation. Pleased we're safe, but we should have allowed the club that wants to try and compete for top places. But we should be allowed to have a club that wants to compete for that. I totally agree. Obviously, a few weeks ago, it looked like Bruce might beat Rafa's points total of 45 last season. It's probably not going to do that now because the recent run of results has been so terrible. But the whole comparing him to Rafa completely misses the point anyway, in my view. I just think that Bruce has had... It's a different circumstance to what Rafa had. Rafa did what he did to keep us in the league with very limited funds. And I know Bruce has had limited funds too. You can say he spent 40 million on Joe Linton, but Joe Linton is a disaster, in my view. I've tried to stick up for the lad, but at the end of the day, he just doesn't look like... He doesn't even look like a £20 million player. That's my issue with him. It's not that he doesn't score goals as much. It's just he just doesn't look special. He doesn't look like a top player. But the media kind of perpetuate this myth about how this is success for Newcastle. And it shouldn't be, because before Ashley came in, we were regularly playing European football. We were regularly in towards the top half of the league. Obviously not every season, but quite often. And we had a good run that could have continued with the right investment. And it's the fact that Ashley's net spend of Ashley, I don't know what the actual figure is, but it's very, very low, isn't it? We know that he's spent money on players, but he's also received massive amounts of money for players. So the net spend is very, very small. And the fact is, a club like Newcastle should be able to compete at a higher level. Should be in the top half. No doubt about it. Liam says, us celebrating Premier League survival is exactly why I compare us to Sunderland and Wigan when they were in the Premier League. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that... I mean, what Bruce came out, didn't he, and said something like, if he'd have been offered 44 points or whatever it was at the start of the season, he'd have been delighted. Well, that might be what you think internally, but that isn't what the manager of Newcastle United should be saying publicly, in my view. That's not sending a good message. That isn't filling the fans with hope and expectation. It's just carrying on the rubbishness that is Mike Ashley's tenure. It really is just absolutely so frustrating. So frustrating. Let's have a look. Kian, hello Kian, how are you doing? Kian says that he would take any owner who cares and has a bit of money, and I think we'd all agree with that. And apparently, this Henry Morris, just touch on this guy. I mean, I know nothing about him. I can't find anything out really about him. It seems very sketchy. I think, if I'm being cynical, I think his involvement in this story is... I think it stinks of kind of trying to get the Premier League to make a decision. I don't think it's a genuine bid. And from what I can tell, I don't want an American owner, if I'm honest, because I know the Liverpool have got American owners, but every other American owner that there's been in the Premier League has been awful, and I think we shouldn't forget that. Look at Man United, look at Arsenal, look how far they've fallen since they got American owners. Sunderland, prime example. Ellis Short was dreadful. We don't want an American owner because they have a certain way. Obviously, like I said. Liverpool are the exception, really, to the rule. They've kind of got sensible owners, but I don't know. Do you agree with me? Do you think that an American owner would be a disaster? Red flags for me with American owners. I just think they're in it for themselves, and they're the ultimate capitalists, aren't they, Americans, and they just want the money, and that's what worries me. And Henry Morris, although I can find very little out about him, it worries me massively. If that happens. So there we go. This is a good question from Dylan. He says, who would you rather permanently sign, Jetro Williams or Danny Rose? Well, that's a really, really good question, isn't it? Because I think both of those players have done well. And I know Danny Rose splits opinion, but I don't understand why so much, really. I think he's come in and done a pretty good job. That said, I really loved Williams. I really loved him. I thought he was absolutely excellent. I remember his debut against Arsenal. He had a bit of a shocker. But after that, he was a really solid player. Played really well for us. And what are the ages of those two players, actually? I guess are they about the same age, or is Williams a little bit younger? Because that might tip it for me as to whether I'd pick him. But I'd probably say Williams anyway, just because I think I kind of liked him. I just liked him, and I liked that he got the club and all that sort of stuff. And I think Rose, but I do think Rose is very good, and I think Rose with an extended run with a good manager would be a really quality signing. But I think people saying both. Some people saying Rose, some people saying Williams. It's a really, really good question, that one, because I think they're both good players. I think it's one of those positions where actually you can't go wrong. Here's a question for you. I saw this floated around on Twitter over the week. Would you accept a small bid for Joe Linton to get rid of him? Would you sort of take less than 10 million for him and move him on? Because is it just never going to happen for him in Newcastle? I think that's a really interesting question. Davey, thanks for joining us. He says Mike has ran the club as a business, and we are one of the best run clubs, but we have a multi-billionaire owner who will not push on, and stagnation is the only way with Mike. Totally spot on, 100% agree with all of that. And I've said this before, and it might be controversial to some of you because I know how much you hate Mike Ashley, and I hate Mike Ashley, but when people say, we'll become the next Sunderland and we'll end up in League One, I don't agree with that. And the reason I don't agree with that is because Mike Ashley, for better or worse, has kept the club on a pretty sound financial footing. We haven't got massive contracts, which is what crippled the Mackhams. We haven't got those silly, multi-year, massive wage deals that completely screwed them over. That's what cost the Mackhams. They couldn't compete, and when they went in League One, it was a disaster for them. So yes, we could get relegated again under Mike Ashley. I'm not saying that we couldn't, but yes, I think that he has kept us pretty financially sound, which we should be thankful for in a way. But totally agree that he's not run the club as a football club. He's not run it as a sporting club should be run. A sporting institute should try to win. It should try to better itself every season. And we haven't done any of those things for 13 years now. And that's shocking. And that is why Mike Ashley has to go. Because he's not a good owner for a football club. He might be sound at business. That's debatable, I guess. But, he needs to go. We know he needs to go. Kevin, nice to have you here as well, Kevin. All the previous and current managers, apart from Rafa, jump on the Ashley bandwagon because he's getting paid. Ashley just wants to survive, and that's the goal. Yeah, I agree. That is what it is. I mean, Rafa was exceptional. Just remember, Rafa came in because Mike Ashley was panicking. He knew the club he needed something special, and it was a great bit of PR at the time, but Rafa, and this is what gets lost in the Rafa and Bruce comparisons. It wasn't just about last season with Rafa. It was about what he did in the 3 years at the club. It was the fact that he stayed with us. He worked towards something. He was starting to build something. And people say his football was boring, and I agree it was. There was a lot of dull matches under Benitez. But when he got Alma on for those last 6 months, we started to play better attacking football. We started to look better. And I'm convinced that if Benitez had been backed last summer and kept on, he would have added to the attacking options, and we would have played better football. but he would have kept us extremely tight at the back still and extremely disciplined. And, you know, the fact is, people say it's boring football. It was boring football, but that's because we all love attacking football. Football fans generally want to see attacking football, right? But defensive and sort of disciplined football is an acceptable way to play football. It might not be what we want to see as fans, but it's acceptable to do that. You know, Portugal won the Euros in 2004 by playing very dull football, defensive football. Jose Mourinho has built his entire reputation on playing defensive, counter-attacking football. And especially when he was at Porto. I mean, Porto, when they won the Champions League, absolutely... They were awful to watch. They were cynical, time-wasting, dirty, defensive, but they won. So it's an acceptable way of playing football. It just might not be what we want as fans because we want to go and be entertained, and it doesn't always happen with that. Let's have a look. Now, where is it? So Jetro Williams, I keep saying Williams, I know it's Williams, sorry. Jetro Williams is 26, Danny Rose is 30. In that case, I would absolutely take Williams because of the age difference, because you're going to get a good 5 years out of Williams, whereas Rose you might get a couple of years. So obviously it depends on the fee as well, but personally, if on that basis, I would probably take Williams. And this is what I'm saying, Liam. Do we have the squad to play attacking football? No, we don't. But Rafa was starting to do that, and that's what he did. He built a team that was capable of getting out of the Championship. But when they were in the Premier League, he played defensive football because we didn't have the players. When we brought Almiron in, we started to open up a little bit, and it got a bit better. So there you go. Oh, hang on. Sorry about that. Carroll finished. Why another year on the contract? Again, it's just because positions need filling under Mike Ashley. I think it is daft. I mean, I love Andy Carroll. On his day, he's brilliant. In fact, he has, even in the few games he's managed to play, he's got something like 3 assists. You know, he's an absolutely brilliant player, but you cannot rely on him. You cannot rely on him, and that is the problem. But, you know, I guess it's probably a cheap deal, and we'll see. We'll see how much he plays next season. But I think I've got a video coming out actually later today, which is earlier in the week. I think probably some of you watched it. It was my 5 things to expect if there was no takeover. Today, the video I'm going to release, which will be at about lunchtime, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, something like that, is 5 things to expect if there is a takeover. And I'm specifically looking in that video at like the next 12 months if there's a takeover. So not kind of the long-term plan, but kind of like the short-term initial plan. And I kind of address that issue of players and expectations of signings kind of in that video. So go and watch that video when that comes out later today. But Carroll, I don't mention Carroll specifically in that video, but I think basically I just think that it's kind of a short-term deal because the position needs filling, and we don't know when these new owners are going to come in. I mean, we hope it's soon, but even now, even if they came in today, it's still going to affect what we manage to do for next season, because we're at a point where what we do now is affecting next season. Good question. Which 3 players do I want to get rid of the most? Oof. Well, I'll tell you what, let's have a look. I've actually sort of thought we'd talk about the squad a bit. So let me just put this up. So which 3 players would I want to get rid of the most? Well, there's our squad. And, you know, we've got a lot of dead wood in that squad. We know that some players are already going. We know that Yedlin's going. We know Williams probably isn't coming back. I know he's listed on that. You know, the thing is with this question, it's kind of like, well, you don't know who the owner is going to be. So it depends what world you're living in. But if we're living in the current world with Mike Ashley, who would I want to get rid of? You'd probably, who knows really? I mean, some of those, like I say, some of those players have already gone. I think Muto's going as well. Was that announced this week? I think I read that. In all honesty, I'd want to see us bring a proper striker in, and I don't know. I think we should cut our losses with Joe Linton. I really do. I think the lad's confidence shot, and I think that I just can't see him developing into anything half decent. So maybe one of them. And again, sort of, you're looking at the likes of Andy Carroll, like we've talked about. I mean, really, in an ideal world, we shouldn't be re-signing Andy Carroll for a year, should we? Really, if we've got ambitions of kind of being anything other than in a relegation battle. And who else? I get you could take your pick. I mean, there's so many really. I guess. I mean, who would you get rid of? Who would you get rid of? I don't know. It's really hard. It's a pretty average squad when you look at it. There's quite a lot of players you could get rid of, but then there's quite a lot of, we need players for next season. So, who do you keep? I think it looks like Matty Longstaff's probably on his way out, isn't he? What does everyone think about that? Liam says getting Carroll was a PR stunt. Yeah, it kind of was, I think. You're right. It was kind of good PR, wasn't it? It was kind of a nice thing when he came back in. But he just can't keep fit. You just can't rely on him, which is a shame. Paul, this is another story that I was going to talk about. What was with the fences going up story, if anything? My understanding of that is that it's nothing. Now, I can't remember what the website was. If I could remember, I'd let them know. It's a guy called Andy who writes for, is it Coming Home Newcastle? I think it's a blog. He said that they wrote a story a few days ago, which was which used an image of fences outside St James's Park, and then sort of the next day that kind of got picked up on as, oh, look at these fences have gone up this week. I think they've been up for a while. I've not been near St James's Park for a long time, so maybe if anyone has been near St James's Park for a while, what would you do? I'm looking at that and I'm getting mixed up. If you have been near St James's Park, do you know if the fences have been up for a while? I get the impression they've been up a little while, and I don't know why they're up really. I guess to stop people gathering, but who knows? Yedlin's going. Chris says, just going back to Joe Linton, that's a waste of 40 million if we get rid of Joe Linton. It is. The thing, here's what I think about Joe Linton though. When I've been watching him pretty closely, and just forget about the goal scoring situation for a minute. When I watch him, he just doesn't look anything special. He doesn't look like, if you didn't know who cost what in that squad, there's no way you'd say, oh, Joe Linton's the most expensive player, because he doesn't look any better than other players that we have. He doesn't do much. He doesn't impose himself on games in any way, even when he's been played in a different position, which isn't a central striker. He's sort of been played out wide a bit. Just hasn't really done that much. I don't know. Dylan says get rid of Muto, Saviet and Yedlin. I think Yedlin's gone, and I think Muto is going as well. Like I say, there's lots of players kind of who you wouldn't miss if they went, would they? I mean, we've got a core of players who do a good job for us, really. And the thing is, we're always a couple of injuries away from disaster, aren't we, with that squad? I mean, it's mad, really, that Dwight Gale's still the best striker we've got. It's just not. We are at the bare bones, aren't we? If we're honest, it really isn't great. Anyway, right. Let's have let's just do a quick see if we can guess who this player is before we talk a little bit more about football. Who's this player? Who do you think that is? Have a little guess. See who gets it first in the comments. I'll give you a little bit of time to figure that out. And in the meantime, Kobe's asked this question, which is really kind of interesting. With no financial fair play, do you think owners will spend big the first season or go like Man City and build it? Hopefully they do it like Man City. Really good question. Again, kind of one that I address in my video that's coming out later today. It's not Owen. It isn't Owen, actually, yeah. And it's not Kevin Nolan. It's not either of those two. It isn't either of those two. Same period of... well, not Nolan, actually. Same period of time as Owen. Actually, he did play with Nolan as well, this player, to be fair. But, yeah. So, yeah, going back to what Kobe's saying... financial fair play, do you think the owners will spend big in the first season or go like Man City? Like I said, in the video that I've got coming out later today, I talk about this. I'll kind of give you a little bit away of what I'm going to say in that video. I reckon they'll build it up gradually, actually. And I think that the way this summer's gone, the short pre-season, I know the transfer window's extended until October the 5th, but... I think that we need to kind of be realistic in who we expect to sign straight away. That's what I think. Just going through some more answers. It's not Viduka. It's not James Milner. It's not Rob Lee. Not Rob Lee. Oh, it's interesting. I feel like for the first time I've got it. I feel like I've managed to create one that's tricky enough. I can see why you say Michael Owen though, you lot. I really can see that in this one. Okay, let's have a look. We have a winner. Let me just get this back up. Hang on a sec. Let me get the right comment up. So, David Johnson. It says Stephen Taylor. And it is Stephen Taylor. Well done. Well done, David. There you go. Liam says he expects a Wolves model short term, but yeah, I mean Wolves have risen sharply quickly, haven't they? They've done a good job though. I don't feel like Wolves have kind of. I know they have splashed the cash a bit, but I feel like they've kind of built it up in a way. But this kind of goes to show, doesn't it? Once that money's there, once that investment comes in, you can move quickly. You can raise your level within a year or two, and I think that. When this takeover happens, we will we'll be fine. You know, we will be fine, and we will move up pretty quickly up the league once it all happens. I really do believe that. People always say, "Oh, we're 10 years behind this team now." Well, no, because in football things change so quickly. With the right backing and the correct recruitment, you know, within 2 or 3 years you can do it. What I would say is in the first year, especially with the time situation we've got now, because we don't know, the owners might not even come in until the season's kicked off now. That's realistic. That could happen. You know, we've just got to be realistic about the fact that the next season's probably not going to be brilliant. But we might end up buying some players, and it might be the January window. Do you know what, David? Is that against whom? I don't know. I don't know when that goal was scored, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Not sure. Does anyone know that? If that's against the Mackhams? I honestly don't know. I just kind of picked the picture. I didn't sort of look at when the picture was taken. So there we go. Right. What else have we got? The training ground. Yeah, talking about the new season, actually, let's just have a look at this. So, the Premier League did announce that the new season's going to start on September the 12th. It's going to run until, I think, May the 23rd, I think it was. Is everyone happy with that? Does everyone think that the gap between this Sunday and the 12th of September is long enough? I think it gives... Is it about 6 weeks? It must be about 6 weeks or something. What do you think? I think Steve Bruce said that Newcastle players would get 3 weeks off and then a 3-week pre-season. So pretty short turnaround. But what do you think that's okay? Do you think it's too soon? Are you happy with it starting in September? I mean, ultimately, I'm kind of happy in a way that football will be back again, and you know, we all miss football when it's not on. But I really hope that we kind of just the problem I think the problem that we've got here is that the transfer deadline isn't for a month after the season starts, and they kind of stopped doing that because it was so ridiculous. But now they've kind of, obviously because of the current situation, they've had to kind of go back to having a transfer window that ends after the season starts, but by a month. So you know, you could, how many games are you going to play in that first month? You're probably going to play at least 4 or 5 games, I would guess. So that's a long time. If you think of our squad right now, if we don't buy anybody until October, you know, we could have played 4 or 5 games with the current squad we have. So that worries me slightly, how it's going to affect Newcastle, because we're at a disadvantage to every other team in the league with what's going on. We're being left in limbo. The Premier League are kind of hanging us out to dry in a way, whether they mean to or whether, you know, deliberately or not. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily agree that they're doing it on purpose, but the fact is they are doing that, and that's a problem for us. And let's be honest, Mike Ashley's terrible at recruiting at the best of times. So if Mike Ashley, who's got one foot out of the door, is in charge of the checkbook, massively worrying. I fully expect a few loan signings, if I'm honest, and very cheap other signings. It'll be interesting to see if we sell players as well. You know, will if the new owners know that they're going to come in, will they have said you're not allowed to sell Saint-Maximin, you're not allowed to sell Almiron? Will they have said that? Will Ashley be allowed to cash in on those players, do you think? Good question, this, Peter. Who do you think will be making the day-to-day decisions once it's done, Amanda or the Saudis? What I expect is, I reckon the Saudis will put someone in as chairman, and I think there was a guy named, I can't remember his name if I'm honest with you though. I expect they'll put someone in as to be the chairman of the club, but I fully expect Amanda Staveley, because she's going to have a 10% stake, so I think she'll want to be on the board. But I do think that it'll be the Saudis kind of calling the shots in the main, because they're putting most of the money in. So I think it will be them. So I fully expect a team from the Saudi PIF to be placed within Newcastle. Is Amanda Staveley's court case stalling the completion? Who knows? Who knows what is going on? Who knows who knows what is causing the delay? Is it piracy rights? Is it Amanda Staveley in the court against Barclays? Honestly, don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. J-Max says, Bruce already said he'd be having 3 loans. I didn't see that quote, but fair enough if that's what he said. It's again, if that is true, if Bruce has said that, I take that actually as a positive. I know it's really not, because in terms of the first team squad, that's a negative, isn't it? Just getting 3 loans. But if Bruce has said there'll be loan signings, that to me points towards a takeover, because the club are going to be reluctant to sign permanent players until the new owners are in, because they're not going to want to put players on 3, 4, 5 year contracts who they then have to get rid of because the new owners don't want. So if Bruce has said that there'll be 3 loans, then I'm going to take that as good news. Yeah, we kind of talked about Rose, but I can't see us buying Rose at 30. I kind of agree. I didn't realise Rose was that old, if I'm honest. Good player, obviously, and hopefully he'll continue being good for us. Geordie says, if the Saudi takeover goes through, we will have a proper run football club with different people covering different aspects of the day-to-day run of the football club. Yeah, there'll be a massive team put in place. If you think, basically, Newcastle United, you've got to realise at the moment, is being run as a complete skeleton staff. It's not normal for a football club to have so few employees, really, especially at a higher level, sort of overseeing the running of the club and the promotion of the club and all that sort of stuff. I think that the Saudis will put in a big team. There'll be all sorts of jobs created, all kinds of high-profile roles. Would have some club ambassadors. I'm absolutely sure the likes of Shearer, possibly Keegan, would fill those roles in some respect. And it'll just be exciting because the club, as Geordie says there, will be run properly. Money will be invested in it. and it'll just be amazing. The transformation will happen quickly in a sense. Whether it happens quickly on the pitch, I don't know, but certainly off the pitch, it will be a massive, quite quick turnaround. And again, I'm going to point you to my video that's coming out later today. I kind of cover some of these issues in that, so make sure you watch that. If Ashley stays, apparently we'll have 30 million to spend. That's 10 million more than West Brom's transfer budget. I mean, the thing is, Liam, who actually knows? Who knows what the budget will be? But to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if it was as low as that. I'm just laughing at Peter's comment. Ashley should... I'm going to put it up on the screen. Ashley should sell Joe Linton and use the 40 quid to buy Sunderland and use them as free advertising. There won't be a club to use as advertising though, will they? I think they're in big trouble. They look like they might be getting some sort of dodgy owner as well. Some guy who was linked to Formula 1 a while back and bailed on one of the Formula 1 teams when things weren't going well, has just said he's put a bid in for them, so they're in big trouble still, I think. Dummett is back, so that will be classed as a new signing. In Ashley's eyes, it probably will be, because he's not been able to play either, has he, under Project Restart. I do like Dummett, though. Quality player. Really has developed. He's the one player, actually, that has developed from the academy over the last few years, isn't he? But we'll see. If Newcastle don't buy Rose, I think he'll be at Leeds next season. Interesting, Keith. Interesting. Very interesting. Right. Oh gosh, it's nearly 11 o'clock, which means there's no time to go. I'm going to put up this. This one might be a little bit easier for you to guess. Having a look at it, I think you'll probably get this one pretty quickly. We'll do it anyway. Who's this? This is the last one for today on the quiz, and then we'll just wrap it all up after this with a little bit of talk about the Liverpool game and the last Premier League fixtures. So get your guesses in. Geordie's saying Matty Longstaff needs to sign a new contract as soon as possible. Again, I've said this before, and I agree with him. It's not that Matty Longstaff is brilliant right now, or he might never become brilliant, but surely just keep hold of him for 2 or 3 years and assess him at close quarters rather than getting rid of him. But we'll see. Who is this? Let's have a little look. Yeah, that was a bit easier, that one, wasn't it? We've got... Who said it first? Connor got it first there. Let me just... let me see if I can put your message up on the screen. Connor was Connor was the first one up. There you go. It's Jonas. Of course it is. Pretty distinctive hair and style, isn't it? Pretty distinctive. So well done for that. So yeah, let's just have a little look ahead to the weekend then. If you haven't seen it, I put a predictions video out last night. I don't normally do them, but I kind of enjoyed doing it. Last Premier League game of this round of games for the season. So go and check that out if you haven't already. And really interesting games. So I'm just going to put the Premier League table up so we can see it. So they're kind of the two red boxes. They're kind of like the really interesting areas. So we've got the relegation area and the Champions League spot, which is fascinating. You've got to remember, Man United play Leicester and Chelsea play Wolves. Obviously, Wolves can't get Champions League spot, but Man United play Leicester, so winner takes all in that game, which is just fascinating. And Chelsea, tricky game against Wolves, really tricky game. You know, if there could be a scenario where Chelsea lose, but I think they're all right, aren't they? Because I think I'm just trying to work it out now in my head. If Leicester win, could Chelsea miss out on the Champions League? I'm not sure because Man United and Leicester play. Anyway, that's interesting. But what's really interesting to me is the relegation zone. And will Villa be able to pull off this great escape? Because when I did my predictions video, it was really interesting. Villa could win and still go down. Villa could win and still go down. Villa could lose and go down. Watford could lose and stay up because of the goal difference. Just look at Forest in the Championship. If the goal swing's big enough, if the wins and defeats are big enough, it could mean anything could happen. Does anybody think that Bournemouth will get out of it? Does anyone think Bournemouth will get out of it? I've got a feeling Bournemouth might go to Everton and get a result, you know. Whether that'll be enough to keep them up, though, I'm not sure, because I can also see Villa actually winning and staying up, if I'm honest. I think Watford have got the hardest game against Arsenal. I know Villa beat Arsenal, but I do think that Arsenal will bounce back and beat Watford at home. We'll see. But, I mean, it could be... Villa aren't quite out of the woods yet. They're really not, because of the goal difference. Look how close the goal difference is. Very, very close. So let me know what you think. Obviously, Newcastle, we're finishing either 13th or 14th. I mean, Palace are on an awful run. They haven't won since Project Restart came back. So hopefully that'll continue. And they play Spurs. And then at least we'll finish 13th. But disappointing end to our season, clearly. So a lot of people hoping Villa go down, obviously. I've kind of said it on Twitter earlier in the week. I get that. I get people... It's funny if Villa go down, and I won't be disappointed if Villa go down. But personally, I'd rather a team like Villa were in the Premier League than Watford. Purely because as a fan, you get a better atmosphere against a club like Villa, against a club like Leeds, than you do against Bournemouth and Watford. And purely from that point of view, that's why... I'd prefer Villa to stay up than Watford. That said, if Villa do go down, obviously it's amusing as hell and it's very funny, and I won't shed any tears if they go down. But it would be amusing. But also, I just think the Premier League's better with bigger teams and with bigger supports. My opinion. I know other opinions are available, and that's fine. Jordy reckons a sneaky 1-0 win for Bournemouth, possibly. Peter Robson's hoping Villa go down, but don't think they will. Liam also agrees with me that Bournemouth will win, but won't stay up. And that's kind of, I think I agree with you on that one, Liam. I agree. I think that Bournemouth might get the result, but they're going to end up just a bit too short, just in the end. That's what I reckon. So there we have it. Loads to look forward to this weekend. And Newcastle obviously play Liverpool at home. I think we're in trouble. Someone pointed out to me on Twitter, though, that Liverpool are on 96 points, or it might have been on my YouTube predictions video, actually. It was a really lovely theory. I don't think there's anything in it. But Liverpool are on 96 points. Obviously, that's a really important number for Liverpool. So their theory was that we might actually win because Liverpool will want to win. We'll want to finish the season on 96 points because of what that means to that football club. It's a nice theory. I don't think it's true. I don't think there's anything in that. I think Liverpool will be trying to get to 99 points. But obviously their title-winning team, first one in 30 years, finishing on 96 points. I guess there's a little bit of a story there, isn't there, if that happens. Anyway, that is all from me for a live show today. Like I say, I've got, including my video yesterday, I'm putting 4 videos out in 4 days. So I've got my predictions video that came out yesterday. Go and watch that if you haven't watched it yet. I'm putting a video out in the next hour or two, which is about the 5 things to expect with the Newcastle takeover, if it does actually happen in the next 12 months. And then tomorrow I'll be putting a video out looking at the best wingers I've ever seen play for Newcastle United. And then on Monday I'll be doing my question and answer video, which people sent me questions for last week, earlier in the week. So thank you if you gave me a question on Instagram or on YouTube. And that's it. That's it for today, really. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you really soon for another live show.